What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Body Lock. It's your man, Ant Walker, joined by my good friends and colleagues, Drake Riggs and Mr. Matt Wells. Fellas, how we doing today?
Doing good. Ready to talk about some MMA. That one thing we all love.
Oh, we're talking MMA today? I thought we were
Oh,
talking other. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess we're here, so let's do it.
So might as well. So before we get into this discussion about the main event of UFC 259, remember to like, subscribe, and share. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. So the main event, UFC 259, March 6, 2021. A ridiculous fight on paper here. A champ opportunity here for Israel Adesanya to dethrone the newly minted light heavyweight king, that is Jan Blachowicz. Fellas, what are we thinking? How does this fight play out? Drake, I'll begin with you.
it's such an interesting fight, man, because, there's just all these factors. Of course, champ is the thing that people look at right away. Two champs going against each other, and then one with the potential to become champion, Israel Adesanya, moving up to make his light heavyweight debut. I believe his light heavyweight debut, right? At least in the UFC, taking on Jan Blachowicz, who has been perpetually kind of counted out on this entire run that he's on. 4 wins in a row now. Just knocked off Dominic Reyes. Looked very, very good in that fight, and a performance that I believe has just been very forgotten in terms of how good it was. Everybody was riding high off of Reyes beating John Jones, as they should have, or should have beating John Jones. And then before that, even Corey Anderson was riding high, and he knocked him out in that rematch. Of course, when it comes to the greatest strikers in the sport, Adesanya has that argument to be definitely one of, if not the best right now. And then some people could even go as far to say as, the best ever. That's how good he's looking. He is just on a different level when it comes to his striking. And as a pure striker, he is better than Jan Blachowicz. But the thing is, I don't think he's going to pack as much power as Blachowicz, despite going up in weight. I think that will add to the power that he already does have, and his, precision, accuracy, speed. He's going to have the edge in all of these areas. But man, if he gets touched, just once or twice from Blachowicz, that Polish power is very real. And just even hinting on the power in his fists, Jan Blachowicz, if you look at that Reyes fight too, forget about that body kick he was working, man. Like some of the nastiest welts I've seen in a pro MMA fight, especially in the UFC too, on Dominic Reyes' ribs after like 2 body kicks. It was real bright, real quick. You could see the toe imprints from what Blachowicz was doing there. The guy packs power in every limb that he has. But the thing is, he's just going to have to find the shot. I think he'll have to wait, not get carried away, because I think, Adesanya could probably put him away too, but he's been notoriously a pretty tough and durable guy. The only person, well, I guess he's only been knocked out twice here looking at the record. And the first one was a TKO from a leg injury to Sokoju. So he's only been finished, by strikes once, which was against Thiago Santos, who hits unbelievably hard himself. And that's the only loss he's had in his last 9 fights. Like Blachowicz, as we were mentioning the odds before going on air here, the guy is being really slept on still, despite how good of a career turnaround he's kind of made, especially this last run. So Adesanya should be favored as the pure, better, fighter in all areas. I think style, like his technique, just all that he possesses in his skill set. But Blachowicz, man, if he can get a hold of him, even there's a little wrinkle there to testing that improved takedown defense Adesanya has. But we did see, moments in the Vettori fight and the Gastelum fight where people who were, not known so much for their grappling, Kelvin, yes, but Vettori, I don't know if I would say he is. Blachowicz, not so much as well, but a bigger guy. So if he can get a hold of Izzy, I think his chances would be pretty decent of getting him down. But aside from that, he's going to have his work cut out for him just because Adesanya is such a good, talented fighter. And I think his submission ability is underrated as well. He could maybe catch Jan, surprise us with, that would be a breakout win for him. Not a breakout win, but, a real unique new performance to see out of him. And I think that he should have his way for the most part in this one. Just he has to be very careful with that power. That's really the big part, and keeping Jan off of him. If he fights from distance here, he should be pretty okay.
it's crazy because as you mentioned, Drake, before, I mean, Jan is someone who is perpetually overlooked. Um, and we keep on finding a reason to look past him. And forgive me for doing this again, but I have to look past Jan right now. I hate to be that guy, but I got to look past him. Matt, am I crazy here? Is there a good reason to overlook Jan Blachowicz next Saturday?
There's really not good reason to overlook him. I mean, well, like you guys said, like he's been overlooked his entire career for the most part, mainly because I think, people don't give him the credit for as good of a fighter as he is, because he's just like a quiet, unassuming type of guy. Goes in there, doesn't do anything really spectacular, so to speak. He just kind of goes out there, stays in the pocket, like, within himself. If I could kind of compare it to another current champion in a way, I would say sort of like a Valentina Shevchenko, because Valentina never really overextends herself. She always kind of stays within her own comfort zone, although the skill sets are a little bit different. But Jan never really, tries to do anything crazy. Never tries to do anything flashy. If it's there, he takes it. If it's not there, he waits for it to open up. And I think that's where a lot of people are kind of picking Izzy in this matchup, because Izzy is the type of guy to create openings. He's going to go and throw those feints that, city kickboxing is famous for. He's going to try to bait you to make a mistake, whereas Jan, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily do that. He just kind of waits and picks his spot. If he thinks it's there, he'll take it. He's not going to be the guy to kind of lead the dance and try to make something happen. So that's the game here for me. And obviously, like Drake said, the power difference is a huge thing. Izzy did kickbox at heavyweight back in the day, coming up. But again, that's a whole different game. You got bigger gloves on. You can get hit a few more times in the head with those on. You can't really play around with 4-ounce gloves. You really can't. So there's a limited number of shots he can take. And Izzy does get touched. It's not like he's the most elusive fighter out there. He is very elusive, but his opponents have been able to find him and land some shots on him. I think Robert Whittaker landed a few hard, clean shots on him that if Jan lands those types of shots on him, Izzy might not be getting up. So you really gotta pay attention to the power difference here on display. How quick is Izzy going to approach this fight as well? With the Paulo Costa fight, he came out and got right in his grill. And because obviously, leading up to the fight, I said, this is a fight tailor-made for Izzy. I said that repeatedly, and sure enough, it went out there, and that's exactly what happened. I don't think he can do that in this matchup whatsoever. I think he needs to be a little bit more calculated, a little bit more patient. But obviously, still, he's going to lead the dance. It's just going to be really interesting to watch this one play out. I do think Izzy will take it at the end of the day, but it's going to be really interesting if Jan can find that chin and how he reacts to that. Because if I personally could see Jan landing a hard, like counter straight, like right up the middle, and it just rocking Izzy's world. And then what happens then? Does Jan go for the takedowns? Does he try to get it on the ground and stop his movement? He's got good takedown defense, but I don't know, man. It's gonna be interesting to watch this one play out for sure.
You see, the reason why I want to side with Israel Adesanya in this one is I see more clean path to victory for him. Blachowicz has to land something really hard in order to open up the opportunities to take Izzy down or to outstrike him. I mean, it's not too far-fetched to think, say, like when TJ Dillashaw first fought Renan Barão, he lands that big shot in the first round, and Barão is concussed for the entirety of the rest of the bout, and it's just getting outclassed the whole time. That is a possibility, but it requires Blachowicz to land clean to establish that in the first place. I just don't see that happening. Izzy does get touched, but he doesn't take too many flush shots. I can only really remember Kelvin Gastelum putting him through some level of hell. And Gastelum is a particularly unique fighter to deal with as far as his hand speed, as far as how fast he can close distance, and just his physical dimensions of being able to get within your reach and handle you a bit. But man, I just don't see Jan being able to do those sort of things. I don't see Jan being able to get him to the ground. Like Blachowicz is, he's not a bad grappler by any stretch of the imagination, but I think Israel has seen overall better grapplers try to get him down, and he's denied those. Granted, the size could be an issue, but like you said, he did fight kickboxing at heavyweight, so he's used to dealing. He's dealt with bigger guys, bigger, stronger, faster, more technically proficient guys than Jan, and I think all that experience is going to come into play. I think the physical dimensions are going to come into play. I just see this as another tailor-made opportunity for Adesanya. It's just going to be a weight class up. So of course, just like in the, I'm not going to say it's going to be like the Paulo Costa fight, because I too thought that was just going to be an absolute one-way railroad. But Costa had that ability to land the big shot to change things, and Jan has that ability, but I don't think we're going to see it here. I think Adesanya is going to put on a clinic. I think he's going to put on a striking clinic, and it's going to be a performance to remember. All right, so we've all put in our predictions of Israel Adesanya capturing his second simultaneous belt, but we have all acknowledged the threat, the danger that is in Blachowicz, in his power, and just the fact that he's criminally underrated and criminally looked over time after time after time. So with that being said, I mean, what if he does win? What does that mean? Like, what does it mean for Adesanya, for the middleweight division, for the light heavyweight division, for a potential return to 205 for Jon Jones? I mean, so many different things that branch out from the possibility of Jan winning. What do you see as the immediate impact of what Vegas would call an upset victory for Jan?
Well, I think that everything would just kind of stay normal. We wouldn't see all this fanciness of, a double champ and a guy who would have to go back and forth between divisions or maybe give up a title. I know that sounds like something he wouldn't want to do, but then we would just get back to, contenders coming in, I imagine. Glover Teixeira gets a title shot that he should probably be getting, normally in this situation. And then Israel just goes back down to middleweight, defends that belt some more and can maybe work his way back to this, because I'm sure he would still want that Jon Jones fight. And as for him, if Blachowicz pulls it off, I feel like he is only going to come back at this point for Adesanya. It's really hard to tell because he hasn't even fought at heavyweight yet. So Jon Jones is still in a little bit of a limbo area for me. But of course, if Adesanya wins his old title, you just know that UFC wants that. The seeds have already been planted. Adesanya is going to continue to push for it and say like how he's a better light heavyweight than Jones. All this stuff that he can put out there even more than he already has when having fought and won at light heavyweight. Like that just adds so much fuel to the fire. But if Blachowicz shuts that down, I'm sure, he'd say something about Jon Jones, like, come back, get the belt from me. I'm the rightful guy. I just beat the guy you were talking to. He could do that too, but will he bite? Of course. Jones was at the Corey Anderson win in that rematch and seemed at the time like he was cool with giving Blachowicz the title shot, but then changed his mind. Maybe he'd be enticed if Blachowicz can win very impressively. Like, let's say he knocks out Adesanya in the first round or something. But if he just, skates to a decision of sorts in a not so great fight, seems like that would be in line with what Jones has said recently, where, I'm not maybe interested in fighting these guys anymore. But if Blachowicz goes out there and wins just like very impressively, I think there's more hope for Jan getting that Jones fight. But it's very hard to tell, I think. But overall, I think the landscapes would stay a lot more natural and less, silly, super fighty if Blachowicz remains champion, of course.
So Matt, one thing that I think we did fail to mention here, About Adesanya, he is not actually truly bulking up for 205. He is essentially just going to walk in as he normally does without the weight cut. Do you think this plays to his favor or as a disadvantage?
Yeah, I think it favors him because he can lean on that experience of his kickboxing background, where he was taking fights at various weight classes consistently in a short period of time. I think with his skill set and the way he approaches his fights, that's just fine. I don't think he needs to bulk up. He's not gonna play the clinch game. He's going to use his precision striking, his in and out ability to just piece his opponent up from range, and that's his key to victory. It will be interesting if Jan does try to implement sort of like a wrestling heavy attack. Things can get really interesting there because that was one of the early question marks that we had on Izzy was what's your wrestling game like? What's your takedown defense look like? He's kind of answered those questions in recent years, but that was at 185. This is now against the light heavyweight, a much bigger man. So it's a different ball game. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. I will say this though, if Jan does go out there and beat him, man, that's going to really cause a mess at 185. I mean, Izzy winning will also cause a mess, but if he wins cleanly without taking much damage, he can go back and defend relatively quickly. But if he goes and gets knocked out by Jan, what's happening at 185? We don't know. There's not really anyone beating down the door, so to speak, besides obviously Robert Whittaker. But who would Robert face? For we could be looking at a potential interim situation, and who would that opponent be? Not too many names currently excite me. I'm not excited for a Whittaker Costa interim title fight.
Yeah, I understand that. I'm just kind of thinking here that if Adesanya wins, then it kind of doesn't matter for the middleweight division to an extent, because either way the division can move on. If he decides that he is going to come back to middleweight, which it seems like he is, considering that he's not committing his body fully to light heavyweight, well, then things can just play out like normal. And he doesn't have a clear number one contender anyway. So this is sort of just filler, for lack of a better word, although this is perhaps the most dangerous sort of filler and the most high stakes filler you can imagine. It's still inconsequential to the middleweight title picture right now because there's no one there that is sitting on their thumb, like just waiting for their shot. And he's off, doing his Conor imitation. So that's one thing. But if he loses though, I think that is more devastating to the middleweight division, because then you have essentially a broken champion going down, and now with all these question marks, maybe it boosts more interest in a Whittaker rematch. That's a possibility, perhaps, but especially if he gets knocked out, and he gets knocked out bad, and he goes back down to middleweight, and it's just not that same aura to it, then it loses a little luster. That I think that's more the danger for the middleweight division in this. Otherwise, I think this is just fine. This is just a happy distraction, because we weren't clamoring to see Whittaker in a rematch anyway. Cannonier got eliminated by Whittaker, Till eliminated through the title picture as well. So it's just the fresh names just weren't there. So I do think this is probably one of the better circumstances for a super fight than we've had. I mean, the only real loser in this situation, in my opinion, is probably Glover Teixeira. That's the only person that is really left high and dry right now, because even aside from him at 205, it's no one else really, I think, deserves a title shot. A couple people that are one win away maybe, but Glover Teixeira is like the only guy that I feel is like a victim in this scenario.
Yeah, that's a fantastic point. And I think that if Izzy does win and decides to stay at 205 for his next fight, it's going to have to be against Glover, obviously, assuming John Jones goes to heavyweight and, that fight doesn't come together. Izzy would then have to definitely put some bulk on because Glover's going to try to get in there, dirty box it up, and get a hold of him. So that would be a much different type of fight.
Yeah, I just kind of think that him not putting on any sort of bulk, I think I just don't think he's fully committed to this move, and this is maybe just a test run to see how he handles mixed martial arts at 205. You know, he's competed at kickboxing. I think 210 was the heavyweight limit that he competed at in kickboxing. So he's been there, just not with the grappling mixed in. So I just want to see what that looks like before anything else. So our predictions are in. We're the panel is unanimous that Israel Adesanya will become the next double champion and capture that light heavyweight belt. So remember, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. I'm Ant Walker. He's Drake Riggs. That's Matt Wells. Peace.